Welcome to this very deep episode of Talking Lamar. Today, I'm talking about digging a well and how to know where to dig. Let's get to it.
What are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
Sorry, I forgot what I was talking about.
What are you talking about?
I am talking to you.
That's just what I was talking about.
It's Talking Lamar.
When you live out in the country, the only way to get water is you got to have a well because they don't have water pipes running out there. And so when we lived in the trailer, we shared the well with my grandparents, which was really not a problem because they only had a cold water spigot in the kitchen. So they didn't have a bathroom with running water at that time. They had, of course, they had the outhouse we've talked about, and at nighttime, of course, nobody wanted to walk 50 yards in the dark to the outhouse because there was no lights. And you could wind up sitting beside a snake doing your business and never know it unless a snake said something. So we had the whole chamber pot under the bed. And I've told y'all before, my grandparents didn't have a chamber pot. They had a slop jar because rich people had chamber pots and they had all them decorations and outside stuff painted on it and the lids and all that. We didn't have all that. It was just a white porcelain jar with a lid to carry it. Now, my Uncle DC, which was he was the only non-alcoholic brother, he eventually put a bathroom in the house with a toilet for my grandmother and grandfather. And my granddaddy bitched about it because he said it was a big waste of money. But I noticed after a few days, he sure set his ass down on it and seemed to get all right with that toilet. I'll tell you, he didn't complain about it for long. And the only heat they had was in the fireplace in each room. So, it was sort of a big deal. But now let's get back to the well thing. We built a house across the road up on a hill. Now, we already had a well to use. It had been dug probably 50 years at that time before we moved up there. And it was back when they dug them by hand and then they laid the rock on the inside all the way up. And they used to have it to put water out in the field and stuff because that was where a lot of the farmland was. And they could get water up to water the cows and that kind of stuff. And so it had a huge concrete square that was probably 4 foot by 4 foot. And it had a big piece of rebar made in a hoop, like a handle in it. And nobody could lift it. I mean, but that would keep you from falling in the well because the well hadn't been used for a long, long time. And so we had to get a tractor with a lift on it to pick it up and get it moved over. And we had to get somebody to come clean it out. So they had to climb down in the well and we had to fix a block and tackle up and lower them down in there. And they, it took a couple of days and they wanted to make sure that everything was good. So, because if that water could be stagnant. And so we had to make sure that it was clean and it turned out that it was. So we got a pump and we run electricity from the house out to the well and we dug a ditch, probably 24 inches deep, a couple of feet wide for about 120 yards. That's how far it was away. And we laid the pipe down and, so we had good water. And I mean, it was no problem for a few years. I mean, it was great. But after a while, we got to noticing that if all of us took a shower, one right after the other, the well would sometimes start to run dry. And we'd have to wait a while for the water to catch up. And if we decided to wash cars or something, then we had to wait to take showers or we had to wait to wash the car. And when Troy was dating, God, he was taking showers 3 times a day, trying to not smell bad, I guess. And my mama, she was putting up with not having water that she wanted. So we decided we need to dig a well. So, and Sheri, this is where you come in. This is for you 100%. I just happened to think about this the other day. We called a well digger and he came out to talk to us and scout the location and decide where we wanted it. So well digger come out to the house and he brought a guy with him. And when he got out of the car, I asked my mom, who is that? And Mama said, that's the water witcher. And I'm like, what is a water witcher? She said, when I went to explain, she said, what he would do, he would take a dowsing rod and he would find out where to dig the well so that we would have plenty of water. Well, oh, buddy. I'm like, whoa, what, And so for anybody that's never had a water witcher come out to your house or seen anybody run a dowsing rod, It can be made out of a lot of different things. Back then, it was made out of wood from different trees, and each water witcher has his own kind of wood that he likes to use. Nowadays, they still have them. They still have water witchers now, but they use like metal or iron or sometimes copper. But the wood ones that they used back then, they were mostly like forked branches off of a certain kind of tree, willow, birch, witch hazel, or some
Yeah,
sort of fruit
dowsing
tree.
rods.
Oh yeah,
So
oh yeah.
Lamar, can I ask, did your folks find their water witcher in the yellow pages, or was this somebody that Uncle Jim Tom knew from his day in the swamps?
No.
Which was
The
this?
guy that dug the well, the well digger. This was his water witcher. He took him with him.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. He never ever dug a well without this guy showing him where to dig. You could tell him where you
Dowsing is
wanted to
so
dig, but he
real.
wouldn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens is you take this, they take the two short ends of the stick, they got the long, like I said, Y. So they're holding the two short ends and the long ends out front, and they walk around. And once they know where the water is, to determine how deep it is, sometimes they'll pull out another stick, like a willow stick, and they hold it at one end, and it would bob up and down. And he would keep track of how many times it bobbed, and that would be where he thought we would hit the water. And then he would, if it would go side to side, it would give him some idea how far, so he could narrow it down. And so basically, he told the well digger, he said, you could probably hit water here 30 to 35 feet. But if you really want to go with the big time water, you're going to have to go 45 or 50. And so for a kid still in elementary school, this is a big deal. I mean, I didn't really understand it, but I was all excited. And so I went with my mom and my daddy, and they talked to the well digger, and his name was Billy, and he introduced the water witcher as Tom. And Tom looked to be like 100, but now that I'm old, I understand an aging process. He was probably in his 60s.
He was 40. Yeah.
Yeah. And tall, thin guy, thin as a rail, wearing overalls and a long sleeve shirt. And Billy said, I've been digging wells for 20 years, and I've never, ever put the drill down to dirt until Tom tells me where to dig. That's it. He said, I tried it a couple of times and it didn't work out. So my mom had already decided that she had wanted the well behind the house so no one would see it from the road. So, because you didn't want your well house setting up, to be an eyesore. So after about 30 minutes of walking back there, Tom said, "No, ain't no water in the back." Said, "That's out." So he came out front. And so my mama said the very front of the house is off limits. So he didn't even go out there. He walked off to the side yard. And after a little while, he stopped at a place that was towards the front of the house, but off to the side. And Mama was not happy about that, but they assured her that, number one, it's going to be the best place to get the most water. And Billy had promised that the well would be low to the ground. And it is. It's the same well still there now. It's not noticeable. It's just, sort of low to the ground, and you plant some stuff around it and it'll look fine. And it does. It's no big deal. So everybody agreed. So he brought the drill out 2 days later, and he put it to the dirt, and he started drilling. He got the first drop of water at 29 feet. And when he hit 48 feet, the water started rolling in. So he went on, dug a little deeper, and that well has been there now over 50 years. My nephew Steve lives on the home place now, still uses that same well, still got water, all the water he could possibly need.
I love it. Dowsers are fascinating, aren't they? The water witching thing. Like, what is it? And it's not, they use their special rod, and it might be willow and it might be copper, but you and I could take that same rod and wander around the back 40 for a week and nothing would happen.
It wouldn't mean nothing. It would not mean nothing. In fact, he let me play with the rod, and I walked around. Please, I didn't know where nothing was. So it was really amazing, though.
So what did you make of that as a kid? Did you understand that what you were seeing was some very interesting? I mean, it's people thought it was magic, but there's some science to it.
Yeah,
What
I
did you
put it
think?
in the same. I put it together with the same deal about the, you know, talking the warts off, or Mama putting Irish potato on my toe to take out an ingrown toenail, and I mean, all those things that she's had always talked to me about, and I'd always seen work. I just, that's
My
wasn't
mother
weird to me.
my mother used to do the same thing in the casino, only her walker was the dowsing rod, and she would use it to try to see which machine was going to pay off. Which
And
one?
she often got it
She
right.
often
That
got it
was the
right.
thing.
Like the dowser in Lamar's story.
Yeah, but I
So
mean, it's like something that's, I don't know if it's passed down. I don't know how it works. I really don't know who. I don't know. I don't know. I guess if you wanted to learn how to do it, you could work with a water witcher, and maybe you could pick it up. Maybe you couldn't. I don't know.
there are a lot of, I mean, out like where my mom lives out in the desert, you can imagine how
Oh
important it
yeah,
is. I
yeah.
mean, dowsing is like a real big thing. So apparently there's no evidence to support how dowsing
No,
works. I remember reading
no.
about this a few years ago, but um they don't know. They don't know. They don't know, is the person on the other end of the dowsing rod, do they have some extra sensitivity to the magnetic field? Do they have some ancient ancestral knowledge of where underground reservoirs might be? It's fascinating, isn't it?
It can't be just luck. And the guy that does the digging, he told my mama. He said, "Look," he said, "every time I start digging, it costs money. I mean, it's money to dig a hole." And he said, "If I dig a hole and I don't find water, I got to fill the hole back." I mean, it's just, I don't know what he paid the guy, but that guy went with him everywhere he dug a well, and he must his accuracy must have been pretty darn good, or he wouldn't still be paying him and taking him with him. The way I looked
He
at it,
wouldn't be making a living that way. Yeah.
no,
I
that's exactly right.
dowsing dowsing and water witching, that's one of those things that we don't understand it. We can't explain it. So we dismiss it instead of going, there's some stuff and things in this world that we just
Yeah,
don't understand yet. Like, why don't we ever use the word yet? Like, we just don't understand
yeah.
yet how these people do this instead of making out like it's a big scam. Because I don't care where you are in the country, you'll find people that get paid to do this, will you not?
Yes. And I mean, this guy's been doing it with this guy for 20 years. If he comes out and if he gets it right 3 out of 5 times, he still looks like a goofball. I mean, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to get it right, or nobody's taking you serious, and nobody's going to. And like I say, he worked for this guy for over 20 years. I don't know how
I'm
much
looking
longer
here.
he
It
worked
says
for him.
dowsers make anywhere from $31 to $42 an hour. It's a thing.
It is
Yeah,
a
it's a
thing.
thing.
No,
It's
it's
still
real.
a thing, I
It's
guess is what
real.
I meant to say.
And the thing about it is, if you're charging that much money, you better turn up some water. Nobody's going to pay you. I mean, yeah,
Well, the phone
yeah.
ain't gonna ring twice, right? If
No,
you
that's
if you
exactly right.
claim if you claim you're a water witcher, and it does seem to run in families. And here's what we don't know. Does it run in families because it's some as yet unknown
Genetic
genetic
thing. Yeah.
attribute? Or does it run in families? Because if you grew up in a family where your grandma was a water witcher and your daddy was a water witcher, it seems like maybe you should be that. What do you think?
Yeah. Yeah. You know, I look at this on the accuracy scale. I never forget. When I was at Budweiser, I always did all the drug testing, and so we had a guy that came up and had positive tests. And so my boss calls me in, and he goes, "Man," he said, "I talked to him," and I said, "He said he didn't do no drugs." I said, "Really?" I said, "Well, how many people you had run in here and said, 'Well, I did do the drugs?'" He said, "Well, no, that's not the point." He was very convincing. I said, "Well, let me." I said, and what we would do in a situation like that, we would let them take the test again, and of course, they would fail it again. But I told my boss, I said, "This company that we send these samples off to, when the lady takes they got one company they use." I said, if
LabCorp.
they, yeah, it's like a lab corp. Yeah, this is a little bit different, but same thing. It was LabCorp. You send them a urine sample and they say he's positive and you fire him. They can't be wrong, because if they're wrong, they're out of business. Because you can't, you know what I'm saying? If you're staking your reputation on your accuracy, you've got to be accurate. I mean,
yeah, or you're not going to be in business for long.
You're not going to be in business. You can't be wrong. And this is probably not as serious as that, but you can't say, I'm going to come find water, and you don't find water. You do that too many times, and then you're no longer a water witcher. You're like I don't know what I'd call it, but not a witcher. That'd be it.
So the old well on the family home place, that's abandoned now and it's sealed up.
Yeah, we covered it. Yeah, it covered it back up. But wells eventually, and I mean, 50 years has been a long time for that well to be working. But if you've hit the right spring, and I think we hit the right spring, I mean, that's probably the same spring. Now the fish pond is probably 400 yards or better behind the house, but I'm satisfied this is probably the same spring that runs into that
feeds
pond.
that pond.
Yeah,
I don't know much about wells. The only thing I know about abandoned wells is like Baby Jessica and the cliche about Lassie. Although I'm not sure, did I read once that there was never a single Lassie episode where Timmy was in the well?
No, there wasn't.
Is that true?
Yeah, there wasn't.
Well, I tell you what, there's been a lot of comedy about Timmy being in the well for that not to have ever happened.
Yeah. Like why is everything that we've been taught a lie?
Mandela effect.
I know.
Yep.
I know.
You know, you thought it was hullabulla at one time, didn't you, Lamar? But now you're a believer.
Yeah, well, because I've held on to some stuff, and turns out I was wrong.
No,
of course, that happens to me. That happens to me on a daily basis. That happens to me on a daily basis here, multiple times a day.
I don't think I've ever lived. You know, it's probably that some of the houses we rented in Wyoming probably were on well water, but you're a kid and you don't know. Yeah. I don't know a lot about what it's like to have a well, but there are two words that strike fear into my heart, and often people that are on well water also have these two words in their life, and those two words are septic field.
Well, now listen, if you've got to have a well, you've got to have a septic tank, because if there's no water line, Now, the septic tank, it was in the very, very back of the house, and if you do the septic tank right, that septic tank at the house has never had to be cleaned out. It does what it's supposed to do. I remember the guy came and cleaned out the one when we lived in the trailer. He came and uncovered it and sucked it out. But if you do it right, and if everything works right, you never have to do that, because you got the bacteria in there that takes care of that. And it's, yeah.
Y'all never had an issue with your septic field? Because we had a listener who called the show one time. Remember, Max? And basically the backyard of their house was a bubbling field of human waste.
Yes.
You got the tank, you fill it, not half full, but you put some gravel in that, and you got to have it right. And if you have it right, and we've got a septic tank here at this house. Carlos had this house for probably 25 years. We've never had any problems.
Dude, I can't take that chance. I'm a Lynch, and we never get anything right. We take shortcuts. We take shortcuts, and we half-ass things, and we put stuff together with a bent wire coat hanger and some duct tape. We are not, my people, going all the way back to the Vikings that invaded Ireland. Those are the Lynches I come from. Have never followed directions or done a job the right way. We can't have septic fields and septic tanks. You got to know yourself. Oh,
yeah.
No.
Yeah, that's true.
No.
Well, I knew that this would be one of your favorites as soon as I had the word water witcher. I said, "Oh my gosh, this is made for Sheri. This is made for Sheri."
I don't have a lot of regrets in my life, but the regret that I did not get to hang out in your trailer with your mama as a kid is strong. It burns hot in me, Lamar.
All right, that's about all the time we got for today. This was another exciting episode. Thank y'all so much for listening. Hope you enjoyed it. If so, how about tell somebody about the Talking Lamar podcast? They will really appreciate it, and I will too. Also, don't forget to check out the multiple award-winning, crazily weird, true weird stuff podcast. I promise you'll love it. You'll be amazed by it or terrified by it, but you got to listen to it. And there's more to come on Talking Lamar, so don't stop now because I hate a quitter. Join us for the next episode. Let us know what you think. Go to the Bob and Sheri app, look down at the bottom, and click on the microphone. All you got to do is start talking. We listen to every message. Thank you so much. Until then.